looking to the end zone for the win. He caught it. Ball game. Chiefs to the championship game.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's up, everybody? It's the Chiefs, it's the Bills, and it's almost here. The game we've all been waiting for is just a couple of days away. Appreciate you for tuning in to this episode of KCSN Update, your daily Chiefs video and podcast from us here at KC Sports Network. I'm BJ Kissel, and it's Friday, which means we're going to be joined by our guy, Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus, to talk a little key matchups between the top two scoring offenses in the NFL who will be squaring off at Arrowhead Stadium Sunday afternoon, 3:25 Central Time. Now, before we bring on Trevor to talk about those key matchups, a quick word from our friends at DraftKings. The NFL action is in full swing at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. And check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. And if you want to do it for this game on Sunday, it's been talked about all week. The fact that the Chiefs are 2.5-point underdogs at home against the Bills, the over-under of 54 points. You can parlay those two things together. And to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on these stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right, now we bring on Trevor Sikkema from Pro Football Focus to help us break down this matchup with his key matchups to watch in this game. Trevor, there's no shortage of storylines going into this one, but before we get to those three key matchups, what's your favorite storyline going into this game between the Chiefs and Bills?
Oh, I mean, revenge for the Bills. It has to be, right? I mean, like that is the ultimate thing. Anybody who's ever played sports before knows that feeling. They know the feeling of going up against an opponent that they should have beaten. Shoot, I'm playing at the lowest level of flag football you possibly can last year. And there was a team we played in the regular season that beat us because we let our foot off the gas. We thought we were better than them. And then we just could not wait to face them again. We ended up doing it in the playoffs, ended up coming away victorious, I will say. But that's part of what makes sports so fun. It's that emotional part that you get into it. And these are two of the best teams in the NFL. No doubt about it. We got I don't even know if you want to call it a preview of it because it feels like it was a long time coming before then. But when we saw it in the playoff game last year, and even outside of the way it ended, right? The coin flip, the overtime, everything, these two teams were back and forth the entire time. They looked like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes looked like two of the best in the NFL. I know the Twitter timeline has gone a little crazy this week talking about, well, is it the next Brady and Manning? Is it not? Who cares what it is, what it isn't? This is just two of the best teams in the NFL, two of the best quarterbacks, two of the best players that we have playing what feels like as good as you can possibly play this position, going up against one another in obviously a historic field, a historic city, these historic fan bases. There is just so much to this game that makes it monumental. But the thing that really puts it over the top is it's not just about getting the win. It's about getting the win against this team for either of them. And I think that extra emotion is what I love so much about sports and what makes this matchup so great.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And the only thing that would make this better for me, and it's not fair to ask, but I just wish that like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen didn't get along.
Right.
Like, I just wish they weren't like buddies.
Right.
Like I want them to not like each other and just add a little something extra to this.
The NFL needs
teams, but
the NFL needs to WWE this up. You know, they need to call the wrestling writers and they need to be like, okay, at the end of this game, Josh needs to do something to Mahomes. And then he needs to do like the thing where he was yelling on the sideline. I think, what was he saying? Like, I'm here or I'm him. Yeah. I don't know what he was saying, but do that against the Bills. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're putting this game on prime time. No other games even being played on a Sunday. That's I do agree with you. I wish that I mean, I don't wish you, but you know what I'm saying, that there was a little more into it.
I just wish I didn't like Bills fans. They just seem awesome. Like I'm sorry. It just seems like an awesome place to be. And I had a chance years ago when I was at NFL Honors. I was on the red carpet doing interviews. I had a chance to talk to Sean McDermott about Andy Reid and what it meant to him to see him win, the AFC Championship and go to the Super Bowl that year. And it's the year that we won it down in Miami, and had a chance to talk to him about it. And he said that he and his wife were watching the game and he had tears in his eyes because of what he knew it meant to coach and what everyone in the NFL knew it was going to mean to Coach Reid to give him another opportunity to get back there and get that Super Bowl win. And so like hearing that and just that genuineness from him, I was like, man, I like this guy. And then the fans I like, Josh Allen seems like a normal, cool dude.
Right.
Like, man, I wish I didn't like these guys, but yeah, it's going to be a good one. I don't think Chiefs, for as much as this game is about, the Bills going back to where they lost that 13 seconds game, as it's commonly referred to, at least around Kansas City. As much as is about that, I think if you're looking for an edge for the Chiefs, the fact that they are 2.5-point underdogs at home kind of lets everybody know, like, this Jekyll and Hyde team that we've seen so far this season, they don't think that can happen necessarily. Like you can't play the way the Chiefs have played and they go up against a juggernaut like the Bills and how they've played so far this season and not be an underdog. So if the Chiefs were looking for some sort of motivation to kind of offset how fired up the Bills are going to be coming into this one, I think that did it, because the players are asked about it all week. So it's definitely bringing more to this game. But as we look at the key matchups, or we get ready here to discuss the key matchups, what's the first one that you've got for us between the Chiefs and Bills on Sunday?
I mean, the number one, it's not one that people haven't heard about. I'm not breaking ground with this one, but it has to be the Bills defensive line versus the Chiefs offensive line. And specifically, we've talked about this before on this show, what the Bills do with getting pressure with 4, because y'all, you Chiefs fans out there, you guys have heard so much. Okay, what's the formula for beating these superhuman quarterbacks? Okay, well, you got to put more guys in coverage. You got to be dropping 8. You got to be playing quarters. You got to be playing too high. And you've got to just try to wait for a mistake, not let them beat you over the top. And it's really hard to commit to do that if you aren't consistently getting pressure up front, because defensive coordinators, they start to get antsy. Right? If you're not getting after the quarterback, if you're not dictating the line of scrimmage, that's where football begins. And if you aren't really imposing your will, if you will, on that side of in that part of the game, defensive coordinators, they just get a little restless and they go, okay, let's bring some pressure here or there. And then you're taking guys outside of coverage. And then some of the best quarterbacks in the world, like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Josh Allen, they're going to beat you. When you look at the Bills defensive line, this is with just 4 rushers. PFF, they have the number 1 pass rushing grade in the NFL. They have the number 2 pressure percentage in the NFL, and they have the number 2 overall pressures total. So that is just when they are rushing with 4. This defensive line is unique. They are gifted. They have Greg Rousseau. They have Jordan Phillips. They have Von Miller. They have Boogie Basham when he's been healthy. Like they're those guys that they can rely on to win those individual one-on-one matchups. And when you look at the Kansas City Chiefs on the other side of things, you and I talked last week about how much I like this Kansas City interior, especially 19.3 pressure percentage for the Chiefs offensive line when they face just 4 rushers. That's 7th in the NFL. So they're top 10 in that regard. So it really is strength versus strength. I think the Bills have been able to feast on some offensive lines that haven't been great starting at the beginning of the season when we didn't know exactly how bad that Rams offensive line was going to be, but now we do. They get to go against a formidable opponent. So where is the next move on the chessboard going to be? Because there's going to be an instant stretches of the game where Chiefs O-line is probably going to be stonewalling them. Okay, well, what are the Bills? What is their defensive line? What is their defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier, going to do to counter that? Is he going to break tendency? Is he going to send extra guys to the line of scrimmage? Or is he going to stay the course? I think that how the offensive coordinator and basically Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, what they are going to do versus what Leslie Frazier is going to do in that chess matchup in the trenches, that's going to be huge to me, because it's going to dictate how many guys are going to have in coverage, the looks that Patrick Mahomes is going to see on that side of the ball. So I think that is a massive part of what's going to go on.
It's interesting to hear you bring up those numbers. And I think maybe it's not just, you're prisoners of the moment or the most recent game the Chiefs have played, because you think about the Chiefs offensive line, you just think Max Crosby running over the tackles. You see Chandler Jones beating Orlando Brown Jr. But yeah, I completely agree. If the Bills seem like they brought Von Miller in to win a game like this, to beat the Chiefs 100%. And to do a little bit more. And seeing how the Chiefs offensive line, at least for the first half, we have to be fair to the game last week against the Raiders, and that it was kind of a tale of two halves. The second half of that game, the Chiefs offensive line did significantly better, gave Patrick Mahomes time to deliver the ball down the field for some of those chunk plays that they finally ended up picking up. But how the Chiefs offensive line plays always seems like it's going to be the most important factor, because if you have Patrick Mahomes time, it doesn't matter who he's throwing to, like he's going to make plays. But going up against the Bills, I talked about it with Brett Coleman on Wednesday this week for KCSN Update, is that, he expects the short passing game, the quick passing game, something that Patrick Mahomes has really thrived in or done a lot of this year, to be the key, because you don't want to sit back there and give the Bills a lot of opportunities to try and get after Mahomes. So it's going to be, can the Chiefs wide receivers get some yards after the catch, break some tackles on the outside, knowing that, Tre'Davious White's not out there, Micah Hyde is not out there for the Bills. So that quick passing game, it all kind of fits in with what you're talking about with that matchup up front. Definitely think that's going to be the key to this game for either side of the ball. It's, can the Bills, with that strength of that defense, because when you look on paper, it's the number one, top two scoring offenses. And then for the Bills, they're also tied for first in scoring defense at just 12.2 points per game. So if the Chiefs can give Patrick Mahomes a little bit of time, it's going to make all the difference in the world in this game, because Bills are going to score. So yeah. What's the second matchup you got for
this? This is actually a really great segue into kind of what you were talking about with Brett Coleman and some of that short passing game. It's the Chiefs passing game to their running back specifically that I think could be an X factor. You mentioned it there. The Bills are going to score their points. The Chiefs are going to score their points, right? This is a matchup against two titanic offenses, two superhuman quarterbacks. And because of that, we know that points are going to be scored. So when I thought about the three key matchup, it's not just like, Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes. They're going to execute at a very high level. And if one of them doesn't, that's obviously what's going to matter most. But I expect both of these guys to play really well. They're going to be focused. They're going to give each other their best. So where are the little X factors that might swing it in their favor in a tight, maybe highly scoring game? And I think how the Chiefs utilize their running backs in the passing game versus the Bills defense could go a long way. When I was looking this up, when the Chiefs are targeting their running backs, so Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon, Isaiah Pacheco, those guys, 87.4 passing grade. That is first in the NFL. In situations where they're doing what they should be, they're leading the ball where it needs to go, they're putting it in the right situations, they're getting yards after the catch. Number one in the NFL in that regard. They're also number 3 in EPA per play when targeting running backs out of the backfield in the passing game. They've got 4 passing touchdowns to running backs, which are also first in the NFL. Now, touchdowns a little bit situational, a little bit different, but I feel like the season-long EPA per play stat, them being third in that regard, shows you how much of a strength and just that little X factor that can be for the Chiefs offense, especially when you're talking about quick passing game. It doesn't just have to be dig routes, slant routes, things to wide receivers. Sometimes quick passing game can also be you're hiking it, you're throwing a quick screen, you're getting it out to the running back very quickly into the flat. Those things all go into it as well, because if you are afraid of Patrick Mahomes and what he's going to be doing deep down the field passing, defense starts to creep back a little, safety stay back a little, linebackers stay back a little, and then all of a sudden you got a lot of space to be able to dump a pass off to a guy like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Jerick McKinnon, and they can pick you up 5-6 yards out of the backfield. That could be huge. That could be things that keep the drive going, put you in better second down and third down situations. Bills defense versus running backs in the passing game. 221 passing yards allowed, which is 4th best. And also their average depth of tackle is negative 0.3. Just kind of wanted to flex the average depth of tackle because we have that set over PFF. But that's all to say the Chiefs have been very efficient, feels like, when going to the running backs out of the backfield in the passing game. The Bills have also been pretty stout going up against them. Their safeties do a great job coming downhill. Cornerbacks like to tackle. Matt Milano, Tremaine Edmonds in the middle are 2 great linebackers who are playing really well, especially Milano. Milano's having a hell of a year. And so it's, again, almost a strength versus a strength, like it was the Chiefs' interior offensive line versus the Bills' defensive line. That's going to be an X factor area where can the Bills still lock down one of the better running back pass games in the NFL? And if they can, I think that's one less area where the Chiefs might be able to find a little bit of wiggle room. But if the Chiefs can dominate in that area, like it feels like they have been over the past couple of weeks, then all of a sudden you're talking about a little bit of a swing that could mean all the difference in the world when it comes to the final score for Kansas City.
Yeah, and it's the quick passing game, get the ball out, the bubble screens, whether they're to wide receivers getting the ball out. It's what we've seen before with Andy Reid when they are getting beat up front. He's like, okay, we'll just turn it into an outside, 4-on-4 matchup. Let's just get the ball to those guys out quickly. Let's throw the ball out into the flat. If they're gonna beat us up front, we can't block it. They're not gonna just have Mahomes sit back there and hope that things change. But it will be interesting to see how they try to going back to your last point, I guess, a little bit as well, whether they chip on Von Miller, how do they try to give a little bit of help to those tackles? Because sending a tackle up one-on-one on those guys, it's just not going to happen. And they're so good and so multiple up front with Epinesa and Rousseau and all those guys you mentioned that it'll be interesting to see what the game plan is for trying to slow down that pass rush up front. And maybe it is some of the quick passing game out to the flat with Clyde Edwards-Helaire that, I personally have been saying for like 3 years. I'm just waiting for Clyde to get more involved in the passing game like he was coming out of LSU. And you thought he would when he got drafted originally. Yeah. That he was going to be a much bigger factor than we had necessarily seen. And then Jerick McKinnon just seems to be the guy when the Chiefs offense is struggling. He seems to be the guy that always provides that spark. He's done it again so far this year. He did it in the playoffs last year.
What was that? What was that third down last week where they just, I can't remember if they handed it off to McKinnon or they passed to McKinnon. It was like 3rd and 20 or something stupid. And then McKinnon just, McKinnon just picks it up. And I was watching that game and I was just like, of course he does. Like, of course he picks that up for the Chiefs just because they have such great playmakers in so many different areas of the passing game. Even on a play where it seemed like they were conceding, they were like, all right, we're going to gain a couple yards, then we're going to punt. They just give the ball to their playmaker and he ends up converting it. That was just something that I was watching last week and I'm like, that's not fair. It's not fair that they can just do this. So.
That guy's breaking tackles left and right. No, he provides sparks, and you saw his pass blocking. I know Mitch Schwartz had tweeted out on the goal line one of Travis Kelce's touchdowns. Jerick McKinnon gets the blitz pickup and flips the guy coming in up over. His feet flip over and flip him completely up in the air.
Love that.
Love to see running backs stick their nose in there like that, help out their quarterback. But all right, Trevor, what's your final key matchup for us? I've got something I want to bring up, but I don't want to steal it just in case it's the matchup that you've got for us.
No, I don't know if it's a player matchup necessarily, but just limiting the explosives. And I know I sound too much like a cliche coach there, but that really is what matters, right? I think that over the last couple of years, no two quarterbacks have given us more of a blueprint of what you need to do on defense than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. And that is where the movement is going on defense when it comes to playing quarters coverage, playing too high shells, not letting them get you anything beyond 20, 30, 40 yards, whatever those over the top plays, limiting explosives, I think is very, very important. So you look at the Bills and the Chiefs, no two defenses have played more too high coverages than these two teams. They know exactly what works. They run it in practice. They make it their bread and butter. And I think they do so on purpose, knowing that they're good enough to beat a lot of teams in the NFL. I don't think any of these coaches are taking anybody lightly, but they know that they are preparing for this game. They are preparing for this kind of matchup, going up against this kind of a quarterback. So Chiefs defense versus throws of 20 plus yards. 52.9% completion percentage against, which is 29th in the NFL. Not very good. 1.156 EPA per play allowed, 30th in the NFL. But when they're playing too high concepts, they are 76. They do have a 76 coverage grade, which is top 10. So I think it worries me a little bit that the completion percentage allowed and therefore the EPA per play per pass allowed are not good so far for the Chiefs when they're playing that too high coverages. And if there is any other quarterback that's going to make you pay, it's going to be the one that had 30 plus fantasy points to Gabe Davis because he was backed up against his own end zone and threw a 98-yard touchdown to him to break it over the top. You can't have stuff like that. And you can't even have stuff where they're continually getting those explosives deep down the field. I thought the Chiefs would be a little bit better at defending it at this point of the year. And they haven't been, not to say that they can't, but that obviously a huge key matchup of can you do what you need to do essentially? You guys run too high. You guys run quarters. You guys run the two deep safeties more than anybody else in the NFL. I think they have 101 snaps of too high looks, and that's more than any other defense. They know what to do. Can you execute? the completion percentage, the EPA per play, all that stuff. So that's kind of that's my last matchup that obviously I think is going to mean the world in this one.
Yeah, and again, not to keep bringing Brett into it, but it's similar to what Brett had said on Wednesday in that, the Bills have a higher ability. They have there's a more likely scenario that the Bills are able to get chunk plays against, the Chiefs defense than the Chiefs offense gets chunk plays against the Bills defense, mainly because the Chiefs offense this year has not been about the big play. They have methodically gone down the field. They don't have, I think, a passing touchdown of over 20 yards or something, or some stat that's very similar. That's something like that. Because I know 12 of, Mahomes' 15 touchdown passes have come within 3 yards, have been less than 3 yards. I mean, it's like, first and goal or second goal from the two. Again, that's 12 of his 15 touchdown passes. So the Chiefs, they spread the ball out. They're hitting more guys, but they don't have those big home runs. Not to bring Tyreek into it, but that's what we come to see with the big plays with Tyreek Hill and spread everybody out.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes into my next point here is that, the stat that I wanted to bring up to you, I don't know if you have these numbers in front of you. I know I'm kind of dropping this on you, but, the Chiefs had faced so much zone last year because no one wanted to play man against Tyreek. Whereas this year, I think the Chiefs have faced the most man coverage of like any team, or one of the most teams that's faced the most man coverage. Whereas the Bills defense plays zone like 85% of the time. Is there some sort of connection there between those two stats? And my question for you, as I know you try to look these up real fast, but
I know I'm very curious.
So it was like last year, the Chiefs didn't face a whole lot of man. They're facing man coverage all the time this year, and they're methodically having to drive the ball down the field, not getting those chunk plays even against man coverage. So the Bills, 85% zone, are they going to play more man coverage, or are the Bills going to continue doing what they do? And the Chiefs and Travis Kelce are going to be in a much better scenario, much better situation playing that zone, where Travis Kelce is so good at finding those little, holes in the zone. It's what Juju Smith-Schuster was so good about, is finding those intermediate routes and finding those soft spots in the zone.
No doubt.
So when you're talking about this game, it's limiting the big plays for the Bills because you're not going to get those from the Chiefs offense necessarily against, again, one of the best defenses in the NFL, but the Chiefs offense really hasn't been set up that way this year either. So if the Bills feel like, hey, we're gonna be able to score pretty quickly whenever we want, and it's going to take them forever to drive the ball down the field, it's going to end up being the key matchup or key storyline in this game is, can the Chiefs eliminate the big play for the Bills and pick up enough chunk plays on offense to try to keep pace with them?
I just looked it up, and this is a quick research on it. So playing either 2-man, cover 0, cover 1, so left cover 3 out. But for those 3 schemes, no team in the NFL has faced more of those than the Chiefs have. You're right. 92 dropbacks. So you've got a lot of teams who are playing man coverage on them. And I think you're right. I think that that's because they don't fear them in man coverage nearly as much anymore without Tyreek Hill. I think that if you're the Bills, I mean, you've really got to play whatever your best game is. And if you feel like zone coverage is the way to do it, maybe you adjust a little bit. Maybe you get a little bit creative with how you deploy it, but you also don't want to play your defensive guys in situations where they're not going to be at their best. Cause I think that's important too. I think that for as much as it is kind of a chess match of, oh, what kind of coverage do you play here? What kind of coverage do you play here? You also have to be confident in these guys to execute that. So if they are just straight up not comfortable doing one or the other in certain situations, you can't put your defense out there in that situation. You've just got to be able to almost put your best foot forward. So it is going to be interesting because you look at the guys who are on Kansas City, Travis Kelce, it just feels like he is a zone destroyer, right? He is the guy who can absolutely find you holes in the zone. Juju Smith-Schuster's kind of that same kind of horizontal wide receiver. You're right. Who's able to give you that ability. And then, if you're playing zone, depending on how soft the zone is, again, that brings back the running back passing game into the equation, right? Can you get a couple of wide receivers to one side? Can you get a swing pass to a running back? Can you get a couple of blocks, spring something loose, get yourself 5 or 6 yards to continue to either move the chains or put yourself in a desirable second or third down situation? I think that all goes into it. So I haven't looked up how much the Bills play zone versus man. I don't know if you had those numbers right in front of you, but it is an interesting proposition with how much teams are playing Kansas City and man more than they have before because they don't have Tyreek Hill. That's a really great point. That is a key matchup to definitely watch, is what kind of defense they're going to be playing.
Another last point I want to bring up in this episode of KCS and Update, Trevor. And this is from our buddy Nick Jacobs here in Kansas City. And he put this tweet out yesterday. He said, fun fact, Chiefs D-line coach Joe Cullen was the Jaguars defensive coordinator last year that held Buffalo to 6 points, 6 of 15 on third down, 229 yards passing, 72 yards rushing, and forced 3 turnovers and had 4 sacks. And then Bobby Stroop, who everyone in Kansas City knows is the guy who's been training Patrick Mahomes since he was, a pre-teenager, responded to the tweet, why do you think he is in KC? So it's like, yep, yeah, nailed that one. But you said great stuff from Nick to find that little nugget.
You said Von Miller was brought in for just this game. Maybe Joe Cullen was brought in literally just for this game to try to figure it out. Joe Cullen, man, I mean, he's been around the NFL for, oh my God, it's almost 20 years now, 15, 17 years, whatever it's been. He's been all over the place and he's had a lot of different success at a lot of different spots. So I do think that he's got a lot of expertise. He has certainly seen a lot of different defenses, what works and what doesn't. So, man, that is a great pull from Nick there to get that stat in here. That was great.
It's a cool little nugget. All right, we're going to leave everybody with that one to finish up this show. We appreciate everybody for watching and or listening to this episode. Please don't forget to like and subscribe or follow us on your favorite podcast platform. We appreciate you for spending part of your day with us. We know there's a lot of great places to get Chiefs content. We appreciate being one of them. And Trevor, we appreciate you for joining us again on this episode. What do you want to promote? What do you got going on? Where can people find your stuff?
I would just promote the It's Just Football show. If you guys are YouTube people at all whatsoever, 11 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday, we're doing a daily football show. It's just an hour long. We're cramming all of the best recaps and memes and stats and everything that you could possibly want to cover the NFL world. We're giving it to you at 11 a.m. Eastern on PFF's YouTube channel. It's called It's Just Football. So tune in. We'd love to have you.
Well, if you want to use that nugget, make sure to give Nick credit. So
that's sure. I 100%. 100% I'm going to give Nick credit for it if we end up using it on the show, because that is an awesome pull from him.
All right. We appreciate all you for listening. We got more content coming, getting you ready for Chiefs and Bills on Sunday, the game we've all been waiting for. We appreciate you for listening, and we'll see you next time.